I know it's hard to believe, but August is almost over. We are getting into the final quarter of the year. Now is the time for you to get your financial shit together. Get it together for the end of this year and get it together for the beginning of next year so that you don't even have to think about it through 2023. Do this by hiring Molly Morris at m3virtualaccounting.com. I hired her last year, and I truly wish I had done it years ago. Have a free consultation and see if she can help you at m3virtualaccounting.com. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Unspoiled, covering Ted Lasso, Season 1, Episode 8, The Diamond Dogs, which is apparently the name of a song, which I didn't know, and so the choice of the name Diamond Dogs did not hit for me at all, and I was puzzled that it hit for everybody else. In this episode, Rebecca is starting to reap some of what she has sown, and she does not care for this harvest. She is gluten intolerant, and it's just not working out for her. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
Erica is congratulating you for not interrupting the intro.
I am trying to be a better person.
But okay, so we start the episode off with Rebecca sneaking out of that waiter's room before she realizes that it is in fact her room and just waking him up with an oi out.
I love it. Yeah,
which is
I love it.
Pretty amazing. I just love this moment of her stopping and going, wait, what the fuck? And I just have to mention again, she's just so pretty. She's wearing this top and she's probably got like a strapless bra on under it or something. But how can she have that décolletage? Like, it's just SPF. That's what it's got to be. It has to be just tons of SPF all the time.
You got to moisturize, kids. Oh, it is Bowie. Okay. You got to moisturize. You got to wear the sunscreen. I mean, all this right here, you know, you want to keep all that looking nice and smooth.
Haven't done it. It's red. It's freckled. It is not good. I put SPF on my face. I always forget down around here.
Oh yeah, this is the spot. This is the spot.
But then
I
you
don't
have to
put
wash it off or
on
else
there.
you break out. And how do you wash this at the sink? Like, it's so... You know,
I moisturize here, but I don't use any kind of sunscreen, which I probably should start doing.
Okay, so you were just talking about theoretically, but not your own practice.
Yeah, not me.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
No, but like, you know, it's really an unfair advantage that Black people have because when we're not moisturized, we get a visual reminder, and you know, and then also people will. You can't be ashy. You're not allowed to be ashy and Black. It's just, we don't.
Rashawn and I were talking about this the other day. White people, you scratch us and it's just kind of like, oh, that's weird. But Black people, did you see that Kevin on stage?
Yes. Seems like something like How to Trigger Black People.
Oh my
and it was
God.
just a picture. It was ashy leg with like 3 or 4 scratch marks on it.
There was somebody in the comments and she had played tic-tac-toe on her daughter's leg. Everybody was so offended, and I was just like, "Man, this is just a wild thing."
It's very. I think we talked about this a bunch of times, but I both really appreciate, but also low key am sad about how much of Black culture is now available for people who are not Black to be part of and learn about. You know, for most of my life. All of the white people that I was friends with, whether it was like really close friends or just schoolmates, they didn't know anything about Black people, really. They didn't know anything about like what it was like to be us, what we talked about, what we sounded like when we talked to each other, and things about being ashy and, you know, white people just learned about weaves. I mean, white people have had weaves, their version of weaves and wigs like forever, but they had no idea what we were doing with our hair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's just nothing. And now there's like a window to it. And so then you get that. Did you see that period?
I did not. I saw your post about it, and I chose based on the commentary to not engage with it. So I have no context.
There are some drawbacks to this two-way street.
I couldn't do it. I was just like, I haven't got the bandwidth today. I'm not doing it. I had a feeling.
But anyway, but yeah, she's stunning. She has a great rack. I don't know what kind of support system she had going on under there. You said maybe it's a strapless, I guess, Hollywood money tape or something. But I love that moment. And he just like pops up out of bed, and that's it. You never see him again. We never even fucking learned that guy's name because it wasn't important.
Jacked as hell. He sits up, and I'm just like, look at the core muscles going.
Yeah,
just like boop, 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 in a row, just activating. It's like, what is happening? And then we get to Ted.
Oh my God.
So I didn't know what was going to happen here. You know, I said maybe he sleeps with her because he's emotional, but like, I feel like he's going to feel weird about it. And I don't think he will, because he, like, it was just so hard to tell from the way he let her into his room what his vibe was.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that he did sleep with her. He does feel weird about it. And later on, they're just kind of like, but why? And he's like, oh, that's true. But it takes a long time to sort of get there.
This episode for me, I mean, every episode I love, and I knew that this show was special from the beginning. It really just, you know, grabbed me right away.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we're late in the season, this episode for me is when the show really starts to tell you what it's been trying to tell you. You know, it's really, you're starting to get to what I think are some of the real core themes that this show is trying to explore. I love this episode.
Yeah, it's pretty, as somebody whose kink is communication.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the entire episode, is everybody just being like, well, why don't we talk about this? Well, why don't I tell you what's actually happening here? Well, why don't I call you out and, oh, you called me out and I'm going to admit to being called out because that's what's happening.
And we just see it in every interaction, we see a little different version of it. And we see really in this episode, like, we have been talking about how much we love Rebecca throughout the season, right? And how it's almost kind of a little conflict, right? Because she's the villain, and she's the villain.
She's the antagonist. Let's not get strong here with the villain, okay? Antagonist.
But we start to see this sort of growth or commitment to trying to, like Roy says, like trying to be more honest, right? We're starting to see it in every other character except her, right?
Yep.
And
she got that baggage.
Yeah.
Bag lady, you're gonna hurt your back dragging all them bags like that. That's it.
Yeah, Rupert is, in my opinion, I would actually flip it. Rebecca is
Rashawn,
the villain.
you've got to give some context because people who aren't in this chat don't know why you just started talking about Rupert.
Jamie said that she says that in this episode she thinks that Rupert is the villain, and I think that Rupert, he's like a cartoonish villain. You know, he is outside of what we are doing with the show. You know, he's like the external motivation for what's happening in the show, but he's not really part of it, you know, in my opinion. But anyway, so let's start at, let's go back to the beginning.
So we had Ted sitting here waiting for Sassy Smurf to wake up, and she asks how long he's been awake, and he says like 3 hours, and he's just sitting there on his phone.
He says, 1 hour, 2 hours. Well, I guess 3 altogether.
And he went and got her some coffee, and he went and got a late checkout so that she can sleep in, which I will tell you what. I have been with Owen and he wants to sleep in and he does not think to check for late checkout for us when he will be there and wants to sleep later. So highly appreciated. And she says last night was fun and he says 5 stars certified fresh. Which, I mean, like, I guess, like, and he has this look where he does seem a little bit happy, but then it's almost like the happiness, it's like he's reacting to himself being happy and then becomes afraid. Like, I'm feeling really like I had a great time, and the moment that I let myself think I had fun, I then feel like guilty for having had fun and begin to try and tamp it down. There's just this sort of up and down with his expression. And
I love his body language. He is sitting in this chair. He is like tight,
totally
like
closed
he
off.
is and he's got his little like knapsack in his lap and he's holding on to it like a little kid, like nervous about his first day at school or something.
That's the exact energy.
He's got his coat on,
zipped all the way up. That man is like a clamshell that has just closed. And she seems to like get that he's a little bit freaked out, and she doesn't push him or anything. She jokes around about how she's going to order a big breakfast on his tab. And
there's a solid Fletch joke there.
A what now?
I think he says something like charge it to the Underhills or something when she's like, I'm going to order a big breakfast. That's just like a joke.
What's Fletch?
Oh, never mind. It's a Chevy Chase movie. Chevy Chase is Fletch, right? I'm pretty sure. You think I should know. I'd seen that movie hundreds of times, but I haven't seen it in like a million years. But it was one of the things that I would watch like every weekend. It was always on like basic cable when I was a kid.
So yeah, she just sort of like is very chill about it, which is exactly what he needs, I think. And he walks out of there looking like he's walking away from a fire he set by accident.
Yeah.
And then we see them, and I kind of danced over this actually, because the episode actually opens with them finding Nate in the luggage area.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking that he was feeling like he was going to throw up because he is car sick from being in there, but it's a hangover, which persists throughout the episode.
Yeah. It's he definitely got it in, and I think we can understand that this Nate is not a guy that goes out with the boys and gets, shit-faced. So he really like is not, because everybody is sort of hungover, but he is the one that's really feeling the effects, like you say, through the whole episode. It takes him,
He's also a very small man, and people just don't like consider that, and they'll buy you drinks and not really think about the fact that he weighs like probably a good 50 pounds less than a lot of these dudes, and it's gonna hurt him faster. But yeah, so we cut from him leaving the room to him getting off the bus and Beard being like, what's going on? Because we were just on like a 5-hour bus ride and you didn't say anything, and that is a record by about 5 hours. And so he says, I'm going to tell you something and I never want to talk about it again. Ever.
This is so
no
good.
knowing looks, no nothing.
No jokes.
Yep. I slept with Rebecca's friend last night. And then Beard says, do you want to talk about it? And he says yes immediately.
This episode gives us men talking about how they feel to each other in a real way. It even gives us Nate saying, I've always dreamed of doing this.
This is lovely.
You know?
He's in the midst of a fucking meltdown, and Nate is saying, this is lovely. And I'm like, Nate, bruh.
But yeah, like, I was hard pressed to think off the top of my head of another situation with grown men, especially in this world where this show is set, which is, professional sports. So it's like the most toxic, most macho, locker room talk is a thing that we say based on the behavior that we expect, that we know happens in these types of spaces.
Yep.
And you're watching these men like just have these really thoughtful, emotionally intelligent, calling each other out on their bullshit conversations. Like,
yep.
Yeah, it's really something. And you realize just how rare it is to get that.
So, and like, this is something that's talked about, and I don't know how many dudes are listening to this show and what their culture is that they were brought up in, but it's a thing that is being talked about a lot more now, how men are discouraged from talking about feelings with one another to the point that they rely on their romantic partner, if they're hetero or just into women ever. They will rely on their romantic partner for all of their emotional needs. And so they don't have that. Women are encouraged to share with friends. It's totally acceptable. So we have a pool of people that we can go to when things are happening. And men restrict themselves to only their partner, which means that they have a partner shouldering all of this emotional labor. And if there's something going on within their relationship, God forbid, he has nobody to talk to about it.
Yep.
And it winds up being like very isolating for men. And they don't, like, even when they get together, that's never brought up. It's always about just like, oh, we're getting together to play a game or watch a game or, like whatever.
Yep. It's a real disservice that our culture has done. And the ways that we sort of confine what it is to be a man and what's appropriate or acceptable behavior from men in that way. And I mean, that's why whenever people start talking about, trigger warning, but for like suicide rates in men, and the public sort of imagination of suicide tends to be, in my opinion, women.
Yes.
Women like ODing on pills or something, but the numbers don't, successful suicides, the numbers are very high, and it's high for men. And when you think about how we have decided how they have to be in our world, it doesn't take a stretch of imagination to go from one to the other. Like, oh, well, yeah, like this is who do they talk to? Who can they talk to about literally anything that's important? So I love that moment with Ted when he's like, yeah, I'm going to tell you this thing, but like, I don't want to talk about it, because I feel like I've seen that scene before. And then the friend goes, oh, okay. And then we don't talk about it,
Or we talk about it eventually, but it takes like all of these weird dominoes falling in this exact right way to like have it line up that they have to talk about it finally.
Yes. But just like him just saying, do you want to talk about it? And then Ted being honest and being like, absolutely, right now is the only thing I want to talk about.
So we'll get there in a minute, but first we cut to Keeley going to see Roy, who is in the midst of getting a sports massage. And I love this. The therapist is wearing her headphones and listening to murder podcasts. And my mother, who up until very recently was a massage therapist, she figured out that she could wear one ear pod in the ear that was away from her customer and listen to podcasts while she was doing her work. And it was like this huge revelation for her to be able to, because it's like, sometimes you get clients who just don't want to talk, and it's an hour of silence, and she doesn't want to talk if it's clear they aren't interested, but it's boring and she has to, get through it. So this just, if she were able to just straight up wear them out and they were aware that she was just like not connecting with them, she would probably love that.
This whole interaction with Roy Kent in this episode, I know I talk about him all the time because I love him the most, but he's got some of my all-time favorite lines that are just in this episode alone. And when he tells her, I make noises and I don't like people to hear my noises.
Yep. wild when you are around. I did a TikTok about this, but we all have noises, but we might not realize sometimes that we're doing them. And so I have had so many moments with Owen where he'll just be like, what was that? And I'm like, what? Because I just went, did not notice that I had done it. I'm over here groaning like a cartoon character, you know, and it's just, I don't notice it. And this, when you're getting a massage, I mean, forget it. I really enjoy having my back scratched. And the sounds I make when Owen scratches my back are like, they're practically sexual. It's just, and no, I don't want anybody around for that. They're going to either be like, we should really leave you two alone, or they're going to call the cops. But yeah, it's this really awkward moment because she comes in and is obviously really unsure of herself.
Yeah.
It's so awkward. I hate this for her.
Really feeling kind of insecure because she doesn't understand what happened with that kiss, you know? So she's really vulnerable and, like you said, awkward and just sort of like, Keeley doesn't seem like the type of woman I think we're supposed to understand that she doesn't have to, like, she's not thirsty. You know, she's not normally having to be thirsty. Like, the men are there, they're able and willing, and, you know, she just has to be.
Yes.
But here she is kind of like trying to feel this man out that had the audacity to like not bang her after that fabulous kiss. And she doesn't really know where she stands, and she plays it really well. It's like kind of like, you know, oh boy, last night was crazy, wasn't it?
Right, you know? Yeah. And she, like, to her credit, reaches out twice here and via text asking if he wants to get together again. And I really appreciate that because so often it's supposed to be that the woman shouldn't ask. If the guy wants to follow up, then it's on him to do it and you shouldn't. And like, while a part of me kind of understands some of that mentality where it's like, if he wants to get together, let him want to and make the fucking effort. I totally like understand it and support that concept, but I really do like hear her just taking control of the situation or attempting to, so that when she feels rejected, it's very understandable. It's not just her being like, well, he didn't ask me out and it's like been a day and a half. It's her asking twice and him putting her off both times. In one case, like almost not responding in a reasonable amount of time.
When she asks him here, like, you know, it's like a very casual, like, you know, you want to get some coffee. And he just says, you know, I can't. I'm busy. And it feels like a real blow off because then that's when he's basically like, yeah, and also, by the way, you have to go now. Like, you can't be in this room right now.
Yep.
You know, so she's kind of like, oh, well, I guess I'll go then.
Yeah.
And then, like you say, we find out later that she tried again. And he never replied to her text. And it's like a screenshot. The text is at like 12:30 in the afternoon. By the time, you know, we don't know exactly what time it is, but it's in the evening at this point when Jamie shows up. So she's been staring at her phone, waiting for a reply for 6 or 7 hours, you know, and got like crickets.
And that's the thing. Like, he's like, well, I was busy. Say so. You don't have to tell her what you're doing. He does eventually, and it's amazing. He's having a life I want, but he doesn't even just, this is the thing that gets to me is like, and I will say this with the full acknowledgement that I am bad at replying to text sometimes. I will read it, be like, oh, okay, I have to figure that out, but I'll come back and tell them. And then because it's been read, there's no dot alerting me and I forget for literally days. So I understand how this can happen, but he doesn't even like say that to her. He's not like, oh, I'm so sorry, I meant to reply. It was just, oh, I was busy. Well, then tell her. Yeah. Then just tell her that you're busy. Like,
and we see him get there, right? Eventually realizing, but it takes a little bit. It doesn't take him very long. He does all this
No.
in like a day, but still, it's a little bit of a journey for him.
Yeah.
And well, I guess we'll get there. But
So then we cut to the future Diamond Dogs as they are talking about the one night stand, and Ted being like, I don't judge that. If you are nuts for butts, have at it. To which I'm like,
that's what I always say.
No, Ted, I don't like it. Don't ever say that again. Like, I don't know. There are so many parts of that sentence that feel like there's a potential for really gross. Just don't do it. No. And Beard just asks, did you have fun? And he tries to be like, I'm not going to kiss and tell. And Beard is like, I'm asking if you had a good time. Like, I'm not asking you, what does her pussy smell like? I'm asking you if you had a good time. I'm just sorry. I have Nick Cannon in my head these days because he is just fucking relentless and everywhere. And I am sick of him. So, Beard again, did you have fun? And Ted just does a little with like this nod. I really like, Nate asks, did she have fun? And he does this weird sort of like bobblehead, like he wants to say yes, he thinks but
he feels also kind of like, but maybe, is it okay for me to speak for her? Like,
which does cause Nate to throw up because it's making him queasy.
Yeah, there's a fucking Roy pops his head in, some like what's going on in here, and Ted is like, oh, we're just talking about like our romantic life or something. Do you want to? He's just like, no.
And this is when Nate says, I always used to dream about sitting down with a bunch of mates talking about the complex dynamics between men and women. And Ted asks, should I tell Rebecca? And everybody says, why not? Or everybody says no. He says, why
everybody
not?
Says no.
If it would break my heart if I found out she was hiding something from me, which causes an immediate gag in Higgins.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse.
I cannot with this guy. I froze just now. I paused it in mid gag, and the face he is making, it is really,
it's so good.
It's something. It's like partway between like a blep and like a coughing up a hairball sort of. It's really, that's something.
Yeah.
And that causes Nate to also need to throw up again.
Yeah, poor Nate. But yeah, they basically tell Ted that you are beating yourself up. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And to be fair, Ted is like, I had a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had like a breakdown at the karaoke bar, and then I had this one night stand with this chick I just met, and also I got divorced somewhere, and you know, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. We get the beautiful, you need a pair of these scissors,
so
and then Nate saying to cut yourself some slack, and they really like, Ted just has to take a moment to appreciate how that set up.
I love his enthusiasm and appreciation for when other people pull stuff like that off. Like he always stops to acknowledge it. You know, it's like the fucking Caesar salad joke from episodes ago. But yeah, and they talk him down. And then there's the funny bit about what he says, I should get you guys satin line jackets or something and call you like Ted's personal dilemma squad or something.
Fucking they toss around a bunch of names, and at one point Higgins says the Proud Boys, and Nate just throws. I love it. You don't got to say anything. Just have him vomit very hard. It's great. So yeah, they eventually land on Diamond Dogs, and then we go to Keeley's house. And Jamie has come to just tell her thank you for like teaching me, essentially.
What does he say? You found a great Jamie that was already inside a greater Jamie.
Yeah, you found a greater Jamie inside of an already great Jamie. And then talks about how he like learned culture from her, and he says something about plays, and she's like, you hated that. And he's like, well, it's just really emotionally confusing when they make you feel all these things, but then they don't want you yelling at the actors on the stage. Like, what is that about? To which I have to say, Team Jamie, part of the reason I really prefer television and even sometimes movies, because I can just, you know, if you're in the right kind of theater, you can yell, what the fuck, out loud, and everybody around you will just start laughing because we are all feeling the same thing at the moment, you know?
I love
Nothing
this
like
bit
those
with
moments.
Jamie.
I love that.
Yeah, I have a good, like, I'm not going to make it. Nope, not going to do it. Chris Goodnight made fun of me today in the group about my Seinfeld and Simpson references, so I'm not going to make one.
Oh. Well, I feel like you're really letting him dictate your your behavior here. Maybe you should just be yourself and own it, because that is part of who you are, and that's something to be ashamed of.
There's a episode where George has a really funny line. Is it somebody? I think it's George. Might have been Jerry. Has a really funny line in a movie and like cracks everybody up. So he keeps trying to go to the same movie so he can like make the same joke. And I think eventually somebody makes a better joke. Gets all mad.
Oh my God. That's just like, I totally understand catching that high. When I was in high school and like I was in my early years, I was finally starting to like come out of my shell a little bit, because I was just not a talker through all of elementary and middle school, and started to finally be like, wait, I think I understand humor. And so I would try things out a little here and there, and I got a couple of like we were watching The Mummy on the way to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in one of the buses, like their tour bus that has like the televisions and everything in it.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, it was a very fancy bus. And the movie, it ended and it was so dramatic, and we were stuck in traffic. So it ends and the credits start rolling and we are not there yet. And it's this long, weird silence. And I just said, now that's what I call a quality film. And it was not a good joke. But it was just so quiet. Everybody like cracked up because I just said anything. Like somebody needed to say something. I find that those are the best ones when there's like a lot of tension and the tension doesn't matter. If it's a tension that's built in a movie where you need the tension and you break it, fuck you.
Yeah,
you're ruining it for everybody. Stop it. But, you know, like, I think I sent you the preview for that movie Raw, which I still have not watched because I'm too scared. And it was this intense preview, and the preview ended, and there was this long moment before the next preview started, and I just said, Jesus Christ. And that was another one, because it's the end of a trailer, so nobody cares. That's fine. Right. You can do it, you know? But it really is a bit of a high when it's people that you like don't know and they're all reacting. So Jamie, he is like just going to do this and then leave, and he's being really like gentlemanly. We also have a moment of him saying that Ted could have stopped him being sent back.
I wanted to ask about that. What did you think? It seems like we were, I guess, talking before about what his reaction would be to being taken back up. Because when he comes in, he's surprised because Keeley doesn't know he's in town. And he's in town because they played a game and he did really well, and he like rattles off some stats. And he makes a joke about like, I scored and got half a chub, and she's like, oh, so you decided to bring your half a chub over here. And he's just being really like kind of like very respectful, you know, little flirty, but not like that. Like last time we saw them together where he was just like outside at the car and he's like, yeah, can we get in the car and like bang a quick one out or whatever? You know, it's a little different energy. And his willingness to like not bring up, let's have sex. I'm just came to say thank you and I'm going to go. And because, thing about Ted, we talked about how he would feel, and he seems
hurt,
really hurt, right?
Yeah.
He seems like he took it very personally, even though
she
he's like having
tries to
success.
tell him he didn't want you to go, and he says Lasso could have stopped it, but he didn't. Which I have been sort of under the impression that he couldn't have stopped it, But I actually don't know that, because the way that it gets presented to us is that Rebecca is acting like it's just a done deal. And
Right.
I am not sure that's really true. Like, is it possible that he could have stepped in and been like, no, we're not doing that, and undone it? Maybe. But I'm just, I just want to be like honest. I don't know enough about how all that works to say, but the idea that he thinks Ted ditched him is really heartbreaking. And I hope that that gets cleared up, because I think Rebecca, having been the one behind that and getting confronted with a bunch of her other shit this episode, may kind of come clean about that. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I think, for the show, I think they make it pretty clear that it is done. By the time Ted finds out about it, it's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really follow professional sports in a real way anymore. I feel like, and people might know better, especially people who follow more closely than I do. I feel like anything I've ever heard about trades, coaches are involved, but the decision is usually made by like the general manager, like the administrative side of the organization.
Right.
So I think it's supposed to be realistic that, an owner could absolutely rubber stamp or, whatever. And the coach at the end of the day has to go along with what,
But if that were true, Jamie would know that. And he's saying that Ted could have stopped it.
Yeah,
he seems to believe it. I don't know. Maybe that's just him kind of being like, if he wanted to have my back, he could have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sort of a general thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, eventually it gets to him taking off. Keeley is so hurt because of everything with Roy and him ignoring her seemingly. And she asks if he wants to stay for a drink. And then Jamie is like, wait, is this how you get sex? Is that you act like you don't want sex? And she says, sometimes that is exactly how it works.
And that is 100% true. Sometimes that is exactly how that works. Does your opinion of Jamie change at all from this little interaction, seeing him this way? Are you softening up on him at all? Or do you still like Roy and he's just like the what does he call him?
The prickiest of pricks.
The prince prick of pricks. The prince prick of all pricks. I think is what it is.
We'll get there, but something like that. It's going to take a little more than this. Okay. It's the kind of thing that I'm like, look, in reality, I have seen a lot of this kind of thing from men that is not anything. It's very promising. It makes you think that they're learning and growing. And then they are back on their exact same bullshit in a day.
It's true. So it do be like that sometimes.
So like, I'm just kind of, we'll see. But, and that's not to say that like, when I have seen it, that the dude is full of shit. It's that guys a lot of times, and everyone, there is a general sort of attitude that if you like apologize and acknowledge, you can just keep doing your bullshit thing and you don't have to actually change your behavior, which is like the opposite of the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think they really meant it in the moment and did not realize that that was going to be a sustained effort that they were going to have to maintain.
Right.
Because we really love this idea as human beings that you have a revelation and then your behavior just suddenly changes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
that is not how that should work.
It's just so not. You have your revelation and then you're like, oh, I got to change my behavior. And you change your behavior a few days and then you slip back into a thing. And then you have a revelation of the same shit all over again. And then you change your behavior for a few days and then you slip back into your same shit. And then you have that same revelation again. And that's just your entire life.
Yeah, it's the recurring epiphany.
And you just have to hope that the time in between each of those, like slipping back into your shit and remembering, that it shortens. That's what you can hope for, is not that you will ever just sustain it without effort, but that the time between where you're fucking up just shortens, hopefully.
Yeah. That's pretty much the best we can hope for, which is, it's a little dire, but
hey, it's a journey. And if we just were able to internalize that and have grace for other people, it would probably help. And I want to have grace for him, but I don't know yet.
Yeah, he's got to earn that grace. You know,
he was
throwing
just
it around.
such a fucking brat. It really, like, the debit on him is so high that in order to break even and get to zero is going to be quite a lot. There's interest also compounding here. So
there's interest on his assholery.
Exactly.
Compounding daily.
So yeah, she brings him upstairs, and this was when I texted you, Keeley, no.
So let me ask you, were you afraid that they were going to get back together, or were you just worried that this was a bad decision, or were you worried this was going to ruin things with her chances with Roy? Or
my immediate reaction was, oh my God, are they getting back together? And then I quickly was like, that doesn't feel like what the show does. So no, I don't think so. But then I was like, oh, but is this going to fuck things up? And the answer is a little. And it could have been worse. And again, she didn't do anything wrong, but it doesn't feel like a good idea for her because she it feels like she got a lamprey unstuck, and then she just went and grabbed it and stuck it back on herself. You know, like, get out while you can, girl.
I think that, it's very understandable for where she was, how rejected she was feeling, Yeah. And so she needed to be reminded that, she's still attractive and, someone wants her. And then he just showed up out of the blue, like delivered on her doorstep. It was like she had fucking door dashed it or something. It was just the timing of it was so perfect. And we don't see any conversation between the two of them about what any of this is going to mean. So we don't know if she's going to regret it or not. We just see them go upstairs and it looks like they're about to have some fucking fun.
That's my question mainly, is like, she obviously is wanting to put that behind her and move into things with Roy. But I don't get, like, Jamie knows when shit doesn't mean anything. I have to assume he's not like a complete moron. But I am just worried that he is going to have an impression now that they're going to be fuck buddies. And then she's going to have to break it to him that shit is not how it works.
How do you think he'll take the news that that Roy and Keeley are a couple?
I am dying over this. I was hoping that paparazzi was going to get away with it, because I was just like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what Jamie does. But I don't know. And like, I don't know if he will put it together or if she will admit to him what was going on right now. Because she used Roy in an argument with Jamie to try and make Jamie jealous. Like, she, how would Jamie feel knowing that that's low-key what she was doing here? And it's not like an attempt to make Roy jealous exactly, but as she puts it later, she was trying to sort of get back at him. And maybe that will be a bit of an eye-opener for him to be on the other side of that. And also, he wants to come back to the team, but like, when he finds out that they're dating, is he gonna want to still like?
That is a really good question. Like, does he want to have a front row seat to his ex-girlfriend and his nemesis? Being a couple, nemesis, and watching that all the time, especially because now she works for the team in a capacity that she really didn't when she was dating him. So she's there all day now, every day. And so then we go to the next morning, and Ted is bringing Rebecca some treats, some special treats as a thank you.
It is the cookies and truffles, which you have to pack the truffles between the cookies and eat them like a breakfast sandwich, which
she is already on top of, by the way.
Like, this is demonic to just bring this in first thing in the morning. I mean, sir, that is just, and she says something like that to him. Like, I can't believe you're doing this.
She calls him like a motherfucker or something.
Yep.
Or goddamn you or something like that.
And he thanks her for being there for him in Liverpool. And basically is like, I owe you one forever. So anytime that you need help or you're dealing with anything, you can come to me. But he couches it in this really intense metaphor about a Saint Bernard. Which
it really much. It goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he uses metaphor like 6 times.
Yes.
And then ends it with like, metaphorically speaking.
So then she calls this in immediately and is like, hey, I do need you, actually. I have a meeting with 2 minority owners of the club, which I straight up thought she meant that they were like non-white.
Oh my God.
For a moment, I had
Did you really?
Like, wait, why is she calling them like minority owners? That's a little bit fucked. Oh. Right.
That's amazing.
I was thinking he might make a joke in that direction, but instead it's a joke about milk because they are named the Milk Sisters.
Yeah.
And that is just an ongoing thing.
They own 2.9% of the team, which he's going to just round down to 2% because that's where the joke is.
Yep.
And then this joke just goes for ever and ever and ever. And Rebecca is increasingly annoyed by it. And then the payoff for me is, I think the very last milk joke is when Rupert is there and says that the women aren't going to be there. And Ted yells, "Oh no, did they expire?" And Rupert gives him this fucking look. He looked at him like he was a child. They had just like painted a picture out of poop and was like showing it to you. Like, look what I did. It was.
Oh, God. So then we have this scene with Keeley, and she is setting up her like preliminary ideas for branding for some of the players. Mm-hmm. And we get the one guy saying that he likes Air Jordans. I'd fuck a pair of Jordans. And then Sam saying, I like issue-oriented products, pro-environment, anti-pollution, which I'm like, of course you do, you sweet cinnamon roll. Absolutely.
And he also likes Jordans, but he doesn't want to sleep with them. And then my favorite, fucking Isaac.
Rolos. So, sweets and chocolate? No, Rolos. Only Rolos, and don't fucking start with that Sour Patch Kids shit.
He is so fucking serious right now.
This is so, like, when I worked at Whole Foods, there was he was sort of one of those floaters that did all the jobs that were, like, kind of randomly needing to get done around. And he loved Rolos, and he was like developmentally disabled. And so everybody would just go and buy bags of Rolos and give them to him until eventually he was like, my social worker has told me that I need to cut back on the Rolos because I have so many Rolos.
Oh
so
my
I've
God.
got to chill because I might like grow diabetic. And I was like, oh, buddy, I'm so sorry. But yeah, apparently when you love Rolos, that is like, you are a diehard Rolos fan. And there really aren't other candies like Rolos out there. So it makes sense.
I couldn't tell you the last time I had one. I can't remember what even is it caramel in little chocolate dollops? Is that what they are?
In like little tiny cup shaped, but they're upside down. So they're like a flat topped dome, basically. And they're fine. I find the caramel to be kind of whatever. If I'm going to do caramel, I want a caramello because that's a real nice salty caramel. And that really goes nice up against that milk chocolate. But, you know, anyway. Inevitably we're going to start talking about the food aspect of this all. So then they take off and Roy comes in and she's feeling real weird. Clearly he's asking just generally, what are you doing? How's the day? And then, do you want to go and get some dinner? And she just says, what is your fucking problem? What the fuck is wrong with you?
It's so great. It's so great because, again, pretty much every other TV show is going to draw this out. Neither one of them is going to be honest about what's been happening. You know, why they did the thing they did, why they said the thing they said, or didn't say the thing that they needed to say. But we don't get that. We just, what the fuck, dude? Yep. You know? And then in response, he just fucking tells her, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, you know, and then apologizes for like not communicating better. He's trying to like do this differently. And you had mentioned you thought he broke off the kiss because he wanted to go slow and didn't want this thing with her to be like every other thing. So you were pretty much dead on with that. He just handled it poorly.
He really did. There's a way to just sort of pull away and be like, all right, I will see you tomorrow. Yeah, but instead, he's just like, all right, good night.
And then practically runs away from her. Yeah. And this back and forth, there's this line when he's talking about, like, I'm a professional football player. I've slept with millions of women. And then she's like, and so have I.
I've had a lot of million one-night stands.
And she says, so have I. And he says, I don't know why we're bragging about it.
So, yeah, he explains that it's like either he just feels empty or somebody steals his watch or, all kinds of things. And
there's a story in the paper about why my dick has a curve in it. And she interrupts him and says, your dick has a curve. No, I just move my hips to make it feel like
This is one of those things.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Where I have had dudes try to do that, and I do not see the appeal. Like, a curve does not do anything for me. And I don't need you to, like, force it. That's not helpful. I just don't. This is one of those things where I feel like it's the only appealing part of it is just imagining him doing hip movements, which I will admit certainly works.
I mean, I didn't mind imagining it.
In terms of the overall, like, what you're attempting with that, I was just kind of like, I guess. But yeah, and she tells him, I slept with Jamie last night. I love it. She starts off with, I slept with Jamie, and he's like, yeah, I know. Right?
I am aware.
So you fucked him to get back at me for something I didn't even know I did. No. Yes. Yep. That's exactly what I did. Yep. And he just looks at her and growls and leaves.
He growls like 3 times, and she's just like, maybe come back when you regain the ability to speak. And
it takes a while because he goes to Ted and growls several more times, and Ted just starts guessing what's wrong. You're trying to buy your first house? Nope, that's not it. Okay.
Oh my God.
It is amazing to me too that he was like, oh, I don't want any part of your relationship thing. But then his instinct is to immediately go to Ted.
He goes right there. Yep.
Look who's got something that you don't want to admit is going on.
I love when he finally does speak and he tells Ted, what's going on. My other all-time favorite Roy Kent line is, does my face look like it's in the mood for shake-based jokes?
No, but in my defense, it rarely does.
Oh my God. And I love when the guys show up, they all already know. They don't,
100%.
And like Ted probably maybe he could have said something in the text, it could have been whatever. Mm-hmm. But even if that is what happened, they are already so keyed in and ready to come in. And I think
and what I like about that is that it is so frequently a thing that guys don't participate in gossip, which is absolute horseshit. Mm-hmm. Guys are some of the biggest gossipers.
When before the fallout and the friendships and everything, when Steven and his close friends, they were the biggest yentas. All they did, they were like me and you. Screenshot. Did you see what this fuck said on Facebook? Screenshot, and oh my God, look at this asshole. Look at this idiot. They were the like these grown men. It was so bad. It was so, they were the biggest, just a bunch of old ladies. But that doesn't make it in the sort of the popular imagination, does it?
Nope.
It really doesn't.
And it's funny because, like, maybe people think that because guys, like we were just talking about, they have difficulty like connecting with each other, so they gossip to other women. And so it's sort of like, oh, well, they only are doing it because they're with a woman, and a woman brings it out in him because she's doing it. But like, no, for real though.
Yeah.
It's
also
definitely a thing.
It's definitely a thing too. And I think it is tied to what we were talking about earlier, because when you are trying to connect and you can't talk about what's going on with you, you can talk about what other people are doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it can feel like connection. And it is to some extent, but it's not the same as like really being emotionally available and honest with your friends. But men can sit around and talk about other people, and it can feel like assimilation,
Simulation.
Yeah,
I thought you said assimilation, which is trying to like
no, it's not assimilation, a simulation.
Like, wait, assimilating with women? I thought we just established that that's not how that goes. Okay, I get it. Minority shareholders all over.
So, and then the Diamond Dogs come in, and they got some really fucking solid advice. What did you think?
First of all, I love the fact that Ted says to hold on, my fine furry fella.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And Ted's like listening to him with his head in his hand, like a teenage girl who's like, oh my God, he asked you out? So that is all very fun. I am rounding up the Diamond Dogs. Who the fuck are the Diamond Dogs? A group of people who care, Roy? Not unlike folks at a hip-hop concert whose hands are not in the air. What does that even mean?
You know that. Put wave your hands in your air like you just don't care.
Oh my God.
So the people who don't raise their hands care.
Oh my God. I hate it.
You love it.
Yeah, so this is when Nate comes running in. Okay, so this is about you and Keeley, right? Jumps up on the thing, saw this coming. Nothing like the early days of courtship. This is my fucking nightmare. And yeah, all of them are very aware. How could you not be aware? I mean, the two of them are walking home. They're sitting next to each other at things. There's obviously everybody is going to be aware of this.
And everybody is really supportive of it. They think it's great. Ted is like, they go together like cookies and milk. And Beard is like, that is a solid analogy. And Nate says something like, oh, Keeley is so kind. To be liked by her must feel wonderful. It's just, they're all just like really like, oh, you two together would be fantastic. Why are you trying to ruin this, Roy?
Yeah, and basically Ted gets up and does a whole, oh, well, her having a sexual history before you is completely unacceptable. She has a romantic history that predates Roy, and that's not okay.
Roy is like, opposite. Yeah. It's like Roy's like nodding his head like, this guy gets it.
And that's followed up with Roy looking at him and saying, well, I can't control my feelings. And he says, well, then by all means, you should let them control you. And he's doing this thing, and eventually he acknowledges it being like a Chandler Bing thing. Because I was like, what is he doing right? It was something, but I was like not getting it.
Is all Chandler Binging aside.
Yep. And then do me a favor. Don't let her past muck around with y'all's future, okay? And then he says, she slept with him last night.
And he thinks that this is like a bomb he's dropping. Like, these guys don't understand why I'm so mad. Like, but when they get the full story, they're going to be 100% on my side, right? This is outrageous. And what Roy says at the beginning, before like this bit, before we get to this bit, is he says, you know, me and Keeley might be starting up something, but I can't stop thinking about Jamie. He's in my head, you know?
Yeah.
And
which I do understand that in a general sense, because the relationship that he has had with Jamie has been so fraught.
Yeah.
I really get that, but that's like less about her than it is about Roy.
Which is what he ends up literally ends up coming to understand when he explains to Keeley later how he has like come around on this. But he drops the bomb that, oh, they slept together last night, really thinking that the whole room is going to erupt in like outrage.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, are you guys dating? No. Did you sleep together yet? No. And then Beard says, you know, you want to bring it home? And he tells him to grow the fuck up and get over it. And then they all barked.
Solid advice. Grow the fuck up and get over it is honestly one of the hardest things in the world.
Listen, it is a never-ending struggle. Like the two things I don't want to do, I don't want to grow up and I don't want to get over it. How about that?
Do you remember that meme that it says, how about this, forgiving someone who isn't even sorry? And the reply is, not to be dramatic, but I would literally rather die. And this isn't exactly the same thing, but there's a similarity in there, which is to sort of like let your ego out of this and just fucking move on. And man, I am not good at that, kiddos.
Yeah, that shit takes some real practice. You got to start young, in my opinion. That's not something you just dive into at middle age, you know?
No.
So in a lot of ways, that ship has sailed for me.
It's something that I can be more aware of in middle age, and I'm working with it. But now that I'm like as aware of it as I am, there is a big part of me that's sort of like, well, maybe that's just me. And then another part of me is like, or you're being a fucking little bitch right now. And I'm like, fine. And that's pretty much how it goes almost every time in circles like that. So then we go to the pub where they are going to be meeting the Milk Sisters. And instead of them, they wind up getting Rupert, who is here with his little Bex.
It's another ambush because that's how Rupert gets down.
Yep.
It's you know, surprising her, catching Rebecca unawares so that he can have the advantage. You know, a person who wasn't like a narcissistic psychopath would have just sent some papers over to the office of the team, you know. But everything has got to be a production, and everything has got to be about humiliating Rebecca, and he needs an audience for that, you know. And also, he wants to see her face. He wants to see her react to the pain that he's causing her. He needs to see it. So
and she's trying so hard to like not let it show, but if you know her at all, it's very clear. And what's so like, this is something that, because later on Higgins basically like calls her out, and I wish that he brought up the fact that she's sort of like still in a relationship with Rupert if they're both doing this to each other, you know. Because that's the thing that I think a lot of people lose sight of, is that they think, well, we're not actually together anymore and I'm moving on with my life, but they still engage in like games like this. You're not moving on and you're prolonging this thing. And that's still a relationship. It's just toxic now, and it's not a romantic relationship, but it's still a relationship that you're like participating in, and for why? So Ted is making all of these fucking milk puns here, and she starts to be like, okay, you need to leave.
It just goes on and on. Oh my God, I wish I had the scene up in front of me, because there's not that they're great, but they're just so back to back that I just fucking laughed hysterically for like 5 minutes. I just couldn't catch my breath. It was like, I'll be a utter gentleman. It's not my breastwork.
Oh my God. Have they ever seen the movie Bridget Jones's Dairy?
And again, Rebecca is just like, when he agrees to go to this meeting in her office, she is so delighted, and she says, "This is good," because she describes the two women, the Milk Sisters, as being, she's like, a deadly combination of being incredibly dull but won't like shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "So I can just put you together and let you guys just blather on, and I can literally just leave and go do anything else."
When he makes the 2% milk joke, she's just like, "Oh, they are going to fucking love you." So yeah, this is when Rupert walks up, and my question really in all of this, Bex, what's your angle? I know that she wants money. Nobody is going to be marrying a man like Rupert, and money isn't a factor. I'm sorry, but there's just no way. So 100% that's a factor. But also, is she petty that she's also enjoying this? Or is this just a side effect that she's sort of living with and it doesn't really matter to her? I can't decide how she feels about how Rupert's treating his ex-wife right in front of her.
You know, that's an interesting question. I don't think we don't really ever get to hear from Bex, right?
Mm-mm.
Like she's just like an object that is hanging on to Rupert every time. Like, you know, we barely met her at the gala, and now, like, you know, they're engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very young, and, you know, Rupert is wildly wealthy, charming, I'm sure, to a 20-year-old, just like, you know, he was to Rebecca when she was, you know, younger. And
I guess that's the part that I'm not really like.
I don't think
buying.
It doesn't seem like there's anything particularly malicious in Bex, as far as I can tell. I think that if I had to wager a guess, she probably believes everything that Rupert has said about Rebecca.
Yeah, that makes sense.
She probably believes that she was cold and bitter and didn't respect him and didn't appreciate him, and that Rebecca is walked out on a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think that she sees the way Rupert treats Rebecca as any kind of red flag or anything. I think she probably is 100% full of, he would never do that to me because I'm not like her. You know?
She is going to find out one day. This is the pain of being in your 20s. And then one day you look back and you're like, oh, babe, it was all right there.
Yeah. And we see him, he buys the whole bar, you know, around. Everybody loves him. He has this thing with May. He calls her delicious. From
your West End to your Marble Arch. And she says, keep your Big Ben in your pants. Which Rebecca like snaps her head over and looks at her in a way that I couldn't tell if she was like, I can't believe she talked to him like that, or if it was, I can't believe that she's like engaging with this. Really? I feel like it was the second one because she looks kind of disgusted. But anyway, this is when he says the Milk Sisters are not coming. I bought their shares. And I am going to be sitting in the owner's box every game. And they are going to ask me my opinion every time. And the camera is going to be on you every time. It actually turns out Bex bought them, but he like gave her the money to do it.
He's not allowed. But so he gave the money so that Bex could purchase the team and then they'll get married. He makes that line about how once we're married, what's hers will be mine, and what's mine, well, will stay mine because I learned from you.
Yep.
And he says that right in front of Bex too, which is kind of a really gross, rude thing to say in front of your fiance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's just smiling. She's all giggles, you know.
And says that I always thought I would pay off my student loans before I bought a football
Yeah.
club just to underline how young she is. She needed a financial aid from yours truly, but once we're married, of course, dropping it like this because he knows exactly the effect this is going to have.
Yep.
And Rebecca holds it together fairly well in the moment, like you're getting married.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's just, I cannot believe this motherfucker.
Yeah. And he has come to, this meeting where she didn't expect him. This is technically her turf, This is Richmond. She owns the team. This is a team bar. And he swoops in and not like a hero, like declares himself the savior of the team, right?
Yep.
And fucking Baz is just like, Ted Lasso is a twat or something. And then he's like, no offense, Ted.
You've all been refreshingly candid about my job, and he calls them all by name. Which what's his name is just like, I can't believe he knows our names.
Yeah, Baz, Jeremy, and Paul. I think it's Paul that's like, he can't believe. Paul's the black guy. And then Baz is the little one, and then Jeremy is like the blonde hair guy. And the whole bar is just in love with Rupert. We see it again. We've seen him do this before. We're watching him do it again. And I think Ted leans over at one point and is like, do you want to leave?
Yeah.
And she's just like, I don't want to give him the satisfaction. She's clearly seething, uncomfortable, but doesn't want to, let him win. Because she's still like
but
you
also
said,
like, what are you winning?
She's
either
engaged in this thing that you were talking about before, right? And to walk out, she says she doesn't want to let him win, but to walk out would be her choosing to disengage, and she not ready to do that.
And considering like the whole point of them being here was to meet with these milk sisters and talk about, like, I guess the future of the team. I don't know what she was going to do with them. But there's no need for that now. So walking out would not even be about him necessarily. It's just like, well, since we're not going to be having that meeting, I hope you two have a good time, and we are going to head back and take care of some other business. And you could just make it be like, we aren't needed here after all, and it would be fine.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he would be like, oh, you don't want to stay and celebrate with us? And make it a whole fucking thing.
That's what I was about to say, because he has done this thing where he's invited them to have, he got champagne and got glasses for them, He's hosting her in her own, turf, which used to be his. So he's like trying to reclaim his old territory, and like not just the team, but the fans, and the area, everything. And she's on some stand your ground shit, like I can't retreat, And yeah, he does the bit that you talked about where he's just, and the way he delivers that line, you guys, he's so good as Rupert.
He is savoring just the thought of her discomfort.
The way he leans in and says it will be relentless is just like, I felt it in my spirit, like, oh, this is going to be awful for all of us. Like, I didn't, like, because you don't know where this is going, So when he first says it, and you're like, well, shit, he can be in the owner's box. Like, he's
and this is the thing
owner.
that made me ask about Bex, because she had to have heard him say that. And even if you know the man, like, even if he told her all these stories about what his ex-wife is like, you have to see the like malicious joy he's taking here, and that doesn't set off alarm bells with you. But maybe she's also shitty. I don't know.
Has she gone over to? I know one back and forth when he's talking to Rebecca. Bex is off playing darts at one, like she's there and then she's off playing darts and distracted. So I don't remember if she's right there when he leans in and really delivers that, or if she's distracted. I had to show him pause for a bit, so I am behind. So I'm
watching it because like she's in the background when he says they were nice enough to sell the minority share, and kisses her on the head. Congratulations! Everybody starts getting the free drinks, and it doesn't, like, I don't get the moment of him saying that right here. Does that happen a little bit later? Or, because he says, everybody join us for a drink, drinks on me. And he sort of seems to walk away. So maybe that happens a little bit further on in the scene later.
Yeah, because
okay.
he
so we're getting ahead of ourselves then.
Yeah, the drinks on me, I think, come from the engagement announcement, right?
Right.
And then he starts talking about how...
No.
Wait.
Then we cut to Keeley, who is talking with Danny about his branding.
Oh, okay.
And he wants to represent Joy. And she says, so I don't know how to, like, monetize that. And he's like, I would like to give that away for free. Which, honestly, Danny, literally just start a podcast with your personality. I can't imagine, but I bet it would be delightful. I don't know what it would be about, but it would clearly be titled Joy. Football is Life.
And we would just talk about all the things in life that bring joy.
Mm-hmm.
I would listen to it.
You know, like, I actually, okay, so I'm going to tell you this now, but I have made an executive decision after we finish covering the Ray Bearer series, Duology. I have decided that we are going to cover Cradle. And my reasoning for this is the enjoyment of covering Ted Lasso is that you just loved Ted Lasso so much. And you just want to talk about it because you love it so much. And I was like, you know what? I have been making all of my decisions about what to cover based on, like, what I think is going to get listeners, or based on what is, you know, but what about if I just pick something that I really love to share with my best friend who I think will also love it? Okay. And so Cradle is going to be happening because I just want to have something that I love, and it's going to be agony because I want to, it's like you with wanting to cover the entire show and you're like ready to talk about everything right off the top, but you have to fucking sit and wait for me to get to the parts and just be like, what did you think of this part? What about this part? What about this part? And that is 100% what I'm about to be like with Cradle. So just, like, be ready for that. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that here, guys. That is what is going to be coming. And oh God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I really feel like
how happy you are.
That series, it's like one of the most satisfying things I've ever read, full of so many surprises. And he has one book remaining. He's like on a schedule and he had it figured out. There's one book remaining and then that's over. And I am so sad already.
Oh,
it's 12 books. That's a lot of books. And I'm still already like, no, wait, there's only one left. Just keep, I don't know, talk about a different character and, like, do something with that. So yeah, that's a thing. I'm announcing it here. I'll be announcing it other places as well eventually. I have to get a logo made and stuff. But I just thought, now that we were talking about podcasting and just pure joy, I was like, yeah, I would like that. I would like just pure joy.
I'm excited.
Well.
Obviously,
so.
I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about the series. So this should be fun. I have no idea what kind of book it is, what kind of genre it is, or anything. So
we'll talk about it. All right. So he gets up and leaves. He greets the captain. Football is life. Roy is just like, And then he comes in and tells her, I'm over it. I'm a grown man. I'm not a baby child. Which is so much funnier. So then she makes him do a press conference about it, where she pretends to be from the Independent Woman,
the Independent Woman online, the Independent magazine.
Woman insert on Sunday.
What Sunday? Every time he calls on her, he's you with the eyes. All right, you lady there.
And he says, can I take you out tonight? If you were to take me out, where would you take me? And he just says something like coffee, and she's like, meh. And he's like, all right, well, dinner. And it's just a whole thing. And eventually, I like you better than I hate Jamie.
Yeah. But just barely. It's very, very close.
And then can you please elaborate on the position that makes your penis feel like it has a curve in it? And he just says, right, no more questions. See you on the pitch. Which is such a great line for that. I'm just like, you're just going to have to find out, I guess.
I love them together so much.
I do too.
Great chemistry on screen. It's really wild how good their chemistry is.
Like, did they fuck in real life?
Man.
Did they? I don't know anything about if they're married or, you know, what, but I'm just going to go ahead and say
Erica
that,
might know.
They may have.
I can't remember what the deal is. I can't remember if he's dating anyone, if he's married. I don't really know much about any of their personal lives, which is weird because I consume so much, you know, supplemental Ted Lasso information. But it was all like about the show and the characters. I didn't do any real like deep dives into their personal lives. I feel like maybe he's single because I want him to be single for personal reasons. But I really don't know if there's anything real.
This is why K-pop stars can't have relationships, because everybody is like, we would like for them to just be single for our own reasons. Thank you.
I got my first K-drama that I ever watched. I watched this thing called Extraordinary Attorney Woo on Netflix.
Okay.
It's really, really good. And there's an actor in it, and he's so fine. He is so fine.
Look, we still have a third of this episode to get through, and we have 30 minutes left on this. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go away from your talking about a fine man. It breaks my heart to do it, but it is so unrelated. Fine.
So we go back to the bar, and this is when he's already bought a round to celebrate the engagement, but this is when he starts telling everybody in the bar that the dark days are over. He's back. He's going to get the team, you know, together. And everybody is just like, you know, rooting him on. And that's what I think Baz is like, you know, basically Ted sucks. No offense, Ted.
Yep. And yes, she is right there when he's talking to her and saying this to her. She is standing at the bar facing them both as he is saying this to her.
That is unfortunate.
So Bex, you are part of this whole little moment here.
I'm sorry, I just got distracted because they turn around and this is when he's like, I want everybody to root for her when she hits the dartboard, right? Right. And this is when Ted asks Rebecca if she wants to go, and she says no, she doesn't want to give him the satisfaction.
And then he turns back around because Bex says she's not going every week, and he says, I am. And he leans in, and she's further back, but there's no way that she does not hear what he's saying.
You know what it is? Yeah, she's out of frame, but she is still like kind of there. Yep. But she moves out of the camera, and it's really just Rupert.
So I'm very much judging her in all of this as well. I get it that she's young and she's probably dumb because you just are at that age. No offense to anybody that age, but like you will realize later that you were very dumb. And I get that, and I'm trying to give it, but also,
yeah,
girl.
Erica mentioned in a chat earlier. I think it's important to mention too that Rebecca left Rupert, right? And she talks about that. Did that happen yet? But she talks about leaving him when she's with Sassy, right? And they're outside the bar having that moment, you know, and finally leaving him. And I think Erica's right that Rebecca left him is like a blow to his ego that he just cannot abide, you know? Because really he's still filthy rich. She's marrying a 20-something hot chick. Like, he should not be engaged in this battle with her anymore either. And we talk about Rebecca disengaging and like moving forward with her life, but Rupert should be moving in, you know, with his as well. And he is entrenched in this thing because he can't let her have the last word of walking out on him. You know what I mean? You don't get to leave me.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then we have the moment where Ted walks up and he says, "Do you like darts, Ted?" And Ted says, I'm more of a cornhole man myself, which I will never ever be able to say cornhole without laughing because
I can't either. I really can't.
cannot.
Every time I do, like they have these outdoor festivals or everything, parties in the park, there's always a game set up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just see the sign and I'm reduced to a 12-year-old boy. It's ridiculous. I don't even want to say it now, so I won't.
So he says, do you want to wager 10,000 pounds to Ted?
Jackass.
Like, genuinely, what are you doing? And Ted's like, yeah, no, but I tell you what we can wager. I will let you pick the starting lineup for the last 2 games of the season if you win. And if I win, you can't go anywhere near the owner's box while Rebecca is still in charge. And she stops him and says, what are you doing? And he says, well, some people may say that I'm white knighting, but I am just doing what I think is the best thing to do right now. So I'm just going to go ahead with that if that's cool. So bye. And he returns, what do you think? And then we get this beautiful scene of him talking about, and I'm going to jump ahead here because, again, time.
Yeah.
But he is talking about how people always used to underestimate him. And he didn't understand why. And then he saw a quote from Robert Frost, was it?
He says Whitman, which I think I read later that is not a real quote from Whitman. But
I felt like it didn't sound like Whitman, to be honest. In the moment, I was sort of like, But it's, don't be judgmental, be curious, which I do like. Mm-hmm. And that he realized from then that the guys that underestimated him were never curious. And their choice to underestimate him had nothing to do with him and wasn't even about him. Mm-hmm. And then does the Princess Bride, I am not right-handed, and absolutely like crushes this last couple of dart throws. And it is hugely embarrassing for Rupert, who did not see this coming.
Yeah. We find out that...
ask me, did I play a lot of darts? He did ask, do you like darts, Ted?
Yeah. He did. Fair. Ted could have been like, oh, yeah, I love him. I played every weekend, but he did not share that information.
And I'm not mad at him for that. But yeah, from age 10 till I was 16 when he passed away, I played it every weekend. And he just really takes his time here with drawing the story out before he does the final throw. Yeah.
He even asked May, what do I need to win? And she tells him, and whatever it is, I don't know anything about darts, but whatever it is pretty serious and like unlikely that he's going to win. So the whole mood is like, this game is already lost.
Yep.
And then, that wonderful speech, which really, that, what is it? Be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah.
Really just, it was everywhere. It was everywhere when this came out. It just resonated with people in a real way. And
I think especially nowadays with just the internet making it so that we can hear more stories than we normally do, we're really starting to realize that there is a lot that has been going on with people that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it, suddenly just being like, okay, yeah, maybe I should just fucking like listen and find out things instead of always just deciding, But again, not great at that. Not great. Rebecca is practically orgasming.
Yeah, this is the best day she's had in a really long time. And she's had some really good days in her life. I mean, look at her life. But this is the best thing ever. She cannot believe that Rupert was done that way, that he was embarrassed that way, that just a minute ago he was like king of the pub, and now he's slinking out, and he says something to Bex like she's a lovely consolation prize or something like that.
Wow, Bex, again, are you not hearing? Okay, sure, whatever. So we cut from there to them all laying on the ground to say hi, boss, as she yells out the window. Yeah. A lovely little moment that Higgins was in on.
Did we have Keeley and Roy's date yet? That gets...
I did jump over that. But yeah.
This is very cute.
They are having a delightful time, the two of them. We
find out what he was busy with, because Keeley is very cute. She wants to know, like, well, what were you doing? And he's just like, it was private. I was busy. And then finally she's just like, are you seeing other women? Like, just tell me, because I don't want to look. I think she says, I don't want to look stupid or something, right? And he finally breaks down and tells her.
And he's like, I am seeing other women. A group of about 6 or 7 women in their 60s for yoga. And then afterward, we went and had, I think he says, like,
one of the women is going through a divorce. So after yoga, they go out for
crepes. I think it was crepes at a drag show, I think.
Yeah. And then they end up being out till like all hours of the morning. They go to GAY. That's he spells it.
And the two of them they get their photo taken because they're kissing on the street.
Yeah. This revelation of his, and she's just like, I know you want to go slow, but can I just touch your ass a little? Maybe you can touch mine a little. And then she kisses him, and that's when
such a good kiss, these two. Ugh.
Yeah.
And the paparazzi takes their photo without asking, and Roy is like, I can take things without asking too.
Oh, the way he stalks over there.
He just goes over like he is about to rip this man's head from his shoulders, and takes the card, the data card, which leads to what happens later.
Yeah.
So the next morning, when Rebecca walks in,
she is says, on cloud 9.
Good morning, Higgins. No fucking like snarky fucking comment. No, good morning, Higgins, like a fucking person. When Ted wants her to participate in this little bit he's doing, she participates and laughs and is having like, she's loosened up. And she sits down talking about how he embarrassed Rupert, and Higgins has to tell her that we have 10,000 unsold seats, to which she says, give them to guests, release them to the visitors. And he's like, we can't have our home crowd outnumbered by the opposing team in the stands.
Yep.
And she's still doing on that her bullshit thing.
After everything that they just went through, after what Ted just did for her, after feeling better, just like it feels like, oh, surely she would turn around at this point, right?
Nope. It's almost like it felt so good that she's like thinking it will just continue to feel this way the more she does it.
Yep.
Which I get, but big picture. It's a friend who was standing up for you because they care about you versus you just tearing a thing down along with everybody involved. Yep. Like, that's not going to feel the same, Rebecca.
Yep.
And at this point, Higgins snaps and says, fuck off. And she says, excuse me, I'm sick of it. You won't take away your pain by constantly punishing Rupert. And she says, where were those morals when you were having lunches with me so that Rupert could have sex in our house? I thought we were friends, and I didn't know it was like that. And that is way worse. Higgins definitely judging you, and he takes responsibility here, but the fact that he comes at her like this before taking responsibility bothers me a little bit. I feel like he should have been coming to her, apologizing a while back and just being straight with her about it. And then maybe he could come at her like this, and I would be like, that was a strong moment for you. But as it is, I'm like, I get where you're coming from, dude, but I don't love the fact that she had to say this to you in the moment for you to take a step back and apologize. Because it feels like he wouldn't have addressed it at all if she didn't bring it up right now. And what the fuck, dude? So anyway, you had every opportunity to do the right thing and you never did. And she calls him a pussy. And he is like, you are correct. And then, but I'm saying to you now, stop it. And she says, or what? And he says, I quit. And she says, I know how this goes. You'll come back, grovel for your job, and I'll take you back. But I will make your life just that little bit worse. And she says it with this like face. And he kind of shakes his head in this way, like, unbelievable. And walks out. And there's a sense when he closes the door behind him that she realizes when she said that, maybe that's not actually going to be how it goes.
Right. It's weird that when I remember the first time I watched that moment with her and Higgins, and the way she leans in and tells him how she's going to make his life awful was very reminiscent of how Rupert had leaned in and said that it would be relentless. It was that same energy.
Yep. And then Keeley walks in and you see her whole like demeanor change for a second of a relief. I just had this awful scene. Now my friend is here. Maybe I'll feel better.
Yep.
But Keeley has the photo and she says, you were the one who arranged for the photographer to take this. We found it on his camera and he said, you hired him. And Rebecca starts to open her mouth and she's like, don't fucking lie to me. Just don't. Yep. And you are either going to have to go and tell Ted or I'm going to tell him on your behalf. Yep. And turns around and walks out. And the episode just ends with Rebecca sitting at her desk looking like she just got hit by a car and she does not know what to do now.
Yep. What do you think happens next? Do you think that Rebecca tells the truth? How much truth do you think she tells? I mean, it's one thing to just admit that you were behind the photo, but you know, does she tell her whole scheme? Does she not?
I feel like I don't know yet how much she understands the complex that she's got going on. If I felt like she had the self-awareness to realize how enmeshed in this toxic thing she is and how bad it is for her, then I would think she's going to come completely clean. But I can't tell how much from these interactions she understands the damage it's also doing to her. And so I could see her really trying to like kind of tiptoe around it and not completely take responsibility. It's interesting because like in the case with Sassy, she did take responsibility.
Sassy had to call her out.
Yes.
She tried to shift a lot of her responsibility onto Rupert in her apology. And Sassy had to be like, wait, no, he was terrible, but you chose, you know, you walked just as you walked up those stairs. Very much like in the kind of way we're watching Bex make that same choice. Like she is walking up those same stairs that Rebecca did. You know, you see what this man is, but you chose it anyway.
And that's the question is like, nobody has the information other than Higgins about what is really going on here. And she's not going to take it from Higgins because he fucked her over. And I'm not really mad at her for that. Like it coming from him that she needs to knock it off. It's just not going to hit, you know, of course it won't. So what I think it depends on is if Higgins decides to tell. Because if he's really quitting, maybe he will. And maybe that will be the moment that it comes from other people and she has to face it because it's like folks that she's grown to like and respect that she's actually started to care about herself despite herself. I think it kind of just does depend on whether she gets outed by him, which is unfortunate because I want her to not have to rely on that. But I just, the thing is with this photo that Keeley has found out she was behind, what motivation could she have had to do that other than to cause strife within the team? What possible justification could she make for it?
Yeah, how could she explain it without giving away her entire sort of plan?
So that's my main question is just, I mean, how, like, if she can come up with a story as to why, I feel like at this point she would still be trying to like two-step around it. I feel like there has to be something else that maybe it was Keeley, because it ends right after Keeley like walks out.
Yeah.
So you don't get to really see how much of this Rebecca really absorbs. But I'm hoping that she has grown to care about Keeley so much that that her maybe having fucked that relationship up will be enough of a wake-up call. I hope, you know?
That she cares enough about what Keeley thinks of her.
Yeah.
You know, is kind of what you're saying. Like,
and like losing a friend. She's got like a friend, you know? Sassy doesn't live in town, I guess. So it's not like she's going to have anybody else around. You have one friend and you completely burn that bridge. It was based on like completely false pretenses. Maybe that will be enough.
Yeah. And also, like, we spent a lot of time talking about how Rebecca wants to hurt Rupert, and she's using all of these people as weapons, you know, and pawns. And at the time she did the thing with the photographer, Keeley was still with Jamie.
Yeah.
So she was just going to, you know, just ruin their thing.
Yep.
Without a fucking care in the world. So Keeley has a real reason to be, you know, like a lot of times, because she's like, if you don't tell Ted, I will. And it kind of like shifts the focus on what Rebecca is trying to do to like the team. But really, that was a really fucked up thing she did to Keeley before because she didn't see Keeley as a real person. You know, she was nobody. She was one of the football players' girlfriends. Like, what do I care what happens to her?
Yeah.
Last thing before it's time to sign off. How do you think Ted takes the news? Whoever he ends up hearing it by, or hearing it from, rather.
I really don't know, because we have seen that Ted will get mad. It's not like he is some dude who just doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that Ted is much more of a human being than it seemed like he might be at the start of the show, you know. So I could see him just kind of being like, all right, well, we work together and that's what we do. And that's that. And I wouldn't blame him for that at all.
He'd be right to do it.
Yeah. You know,
when he says the thing, I forget what prompted it. Oh yeah. We talked about it when they're talking about like, don't tell Rebecca about Sassy.
Yeah.
And he says, I would be crushed.
Yep.
You know, if I found
and Higgins
out
gags.
Yeah.
So, I mean, after having just like signed these divorce papers and had a panic attack that she helped him through, that is a particular kind of feeling of betrayal that I just don't know how you make up for that.
He just did this incredible gesture at the bar for her, literal white knight, you know, and just a million other little small things he's been doing throughout the whole show to support her in all these moments when she's worried about what dress to wear to the gala, you know.
Yep.
Bringing her the biscuits in the morning. Yeah.
I don't think it'll be pretty. I do, like, as much as I'm sort of like, will Higgins tell? As much as a part of me kind of wants him to, like, if she isn't going to come clean herself, I would like him to blow the whistle on her in a way. I'm also like, well, you fucked her over though. Too bad. If you then also blew the whistle on her with this, it feels like too much. You don't have the right, is kind of the vibe that I'm having right now. And if he did, I would need him to be very straightforward about the role he played too. I would need him to be like, and I was involved, and this is part of why she's like so dismissive with me. Because Ted, I can't tell if he notices that or not. He like, you know, says something about how Rebecca really appreciates all your hard work, but he doesn't say it in a way like he's judging her for not thanking him. So I can't tell how much he is aware of the fact that their relationship is not good.
I don't think he's chosen to acknowledge it at all.
Yeah.
I think that Ted doesn't necessarily like to focus on people's shortcomings, you know, and maybe has decided that whatever is going on between Higgins and Rebecca is much more of about, she just has a different management style. She's just more hands off and more formal, you know. She's not like I am with my team, without really thinking, I wonder what's going on with that, you know, what's that about? And Higgins, to his credit, and you know, when he spends a lot of time with the team, a lot of time with Ted and Nate and Beard, we've never seen him say anything about Rebecca. He doesn't complain about her to them. He doesn't, you know, make remarks about, you know, what a terrible boss she is or anything like that. Yeah, I'm so excited. I can't believe the season's almost already. This was episode 8, so we only have 2 more for this season.
Yeah, I'm hoping that she comes completely clean, because if she doesn't, we're at the end of this season, which means that this will be carried over into the second season, and I don't really want to see that. I don't know what that means for the second season. If she does this, then, you know, what the main, like, driving
what's the drama?
Yeah. But either way, I just, like, I feel like she's at least in the right place at this point, where she has started to open up enough that it's like a little crack, and this is like the chisel that goes in and breaks it completely open. Yeah. So fingers crossed for that.
One of my favorite things before we go is the writers on the show talked a lot about how the very first opening scene of the series was a close-up on Rebecca. So the show was always letting us know that this was really going to be about her in a way that we didn't really understand how that was going to be. And then slowly you start to realize.
It'd be wild if she just fired Ted. She was like,
"Oh my God,
I'm just going to fucking fire everybody and not deal with that." Because some people, that's how they would do it, you know?
Listen,
just like,
if I could just fire people instead of apologizing to them, I would probably use that option way more than is healthy. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a good postcard. All right, guys. Well, we actually managed to stay within time. How about that?
Good for us. We started on time. We ended on time. We're like a professional podcast.
Like, asterisk. All right, guys. Well, we love you very much.
We do.
And we will see you next Friday again. And until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
No, my hands won't be tied down, and I will not lay them down, 'cause I can finally see the truth. So simple but so clear, accepting an ocean's depths were out of reach for me and you. If you're coming up for air, breathing in, you know I'll be there when you first begin. And when everybody's telling us we have no time, we'll prove them wrong again.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.